Hello, this is Eden with HelixxVR. Today I'll be reviewing Espire1 VR Operative, a stealth game for PC VR, PSVR, and the Oculus Quest by Digital Load. Now, we'll be covering and have tested all versions of the game in this review, but I did play through the majority on the Valve Index. Espire1 is a single-player game and has often been compared to Metal Gear Solid or GoldenEye. You control the Espire1 androids to make your way through the story, using stealth to evade traps and to avoid enemies, or by using force to break your way through to the objective. This is sometimes just done by moving through the locations and involves activating certain switches or achieving certain objectives to proceed. Unlike many VR games, Espire1 has a fairly detailed story. While it's nothing too innovative, it does a good job at building up the world by all the details mentioned in the narration as you play through the levels. You can hear extra parts by picking up optional items too. As you progress, you start to equip yourself with a number of weapons, tools and techniques to help you quietly make your way through. You can climb many of the surfaces, which helps you hide from enemies, stealthily make your way through, or just drop down on an enemy's head to knock them out. You can shoot tranquilizer darts to knock the enemy out too, or just use a silenced pistol to kill them. You can move the bodies of knocked out enemies to hide. You can disable traps. You can hold up enemies by using voice commands and a gun. You can use remote cameras to peek around corners, over ledges, and throw the cameras too. You can even slow down time and detect heat signatures. So there are really quite a few different ways that you can sneak about and avoid detection. That said, guards can be quite sensitive at times, raising the level of detection even when the other guards, say, didn't report in due to being knocked out. This really encouraged me to try and go for total stealth at times, using the full range of abilities to do so. Sneaking is obviously the intended method of playing, but you certainly have options for when things are not so quiet. You have a number of rifles and machine guns. You have a repair tool for times that you do get caught. You can run incredibly fast too. I once ran through about 10 enemies just punching them to knock them out. I took a fair bit of damage, but it worked. I was quite impressed just by all the options Espire1 gives you. It's not just a case of sneaking past enemies and tranking them, you're actually limited on tranquilizer darts and bullets, so this can encourage you to vary your approach. There were some nice touches too, like the repair tool being used to heal, being used as a pathfinder tool, and being used to stun and disable traps. Unfortunately, the game is rather linear, so while you often have tons of options on methods to get through a room and perhaps a couple paths through it, you'll be guided from one room to the next. There isn't much exploration or chance to go off path. This was sometimes done to the point of hand-holding. One of the areas that Espire1 does not give you an option, and it really wouldn't make sense to, is in locomotion. It's smooth locomotion only. That said, it comes equipped with a full suite of comfort options aside from that. Personally, I found that the default comfort options blocked far too much of my vision to the point that I missed enemies, but it can be adjusted to various sizes or just turned off completely. You can also choose between various snap and smooth turning options. Outside of the story mode, there is a challenge mode. You need to unlock the challenges as you play through, but you can compete for leaderboard scores in stealth, combat and objective modes. These include sneaking, hold-ups, elimination, takedowns, hostage rescues, climbing, and person of interest missions. There's not a huge amount of each of them, but there's certainly a variety. I've set a few high scores in the stealth missions and had quite a lot of fun doing so. Normal levels of scores too, and challenges to try and complete them in certain ways. I do have to say that I did have some issues with the game. The major one is that the enemies are not exactly the most competent. They forget about you easily when they do spot you, and lower the alert level too easily at times. They don't always care when they see their allies' dead bodies laying around. They can call for search when I've just shot nearby guards and another has a clear line of sight to me. They might be facing the wall or another odd direction away from all the loud shooting. They've even just walked away when logic would really dictate they continue searching. Basically, the AI needs improvements. That's the biggest issue. I have had issues with holstering weapons pretty often too. Pistols might easily go into an unintended holster on the wrong side, or an SMG or a rifle may just drop completely on the floor rather than going into the holster. I've lost tons of weapons that way. The voice commands sometimes have issues too. You can adjust the sensitivity of them in the settings, but I never actually got one command to work, while the other isn't completely consistently working. Sometimes the pathfinding tool just didn't trigger too. Guards occasionally fly into the distance, guns sometimes stay in the air after the guard is down, just minor things really there. And while I've mentioned several issues, it is worth pointing out that the game has already been patched several times since release. It does look like things are being improved all the time, but one which I doubt will change, while I personally didn't mind them, 2 of the 3 HelixxVR members who played the game found the voiceovers to be quite annoying and difficult to understand at times. As mentioned, this game is on 3 platforms, PC, Quest and PSVR. Playing the game on PC, it works well with the Index, Oculus or Vive controllers. On the Index controller, there isn't a menu button. One minor issue is that it never explains it in-game, but you can tap a symbol on your hand to access the menu rather than pressing the button. The graphics on PC were slightly dark, but quite detailed, and generally I was fairly impressed with them. On the Quests, I was impressed. While graphically the details were lower, it's actually pretty impressive just how good it looks for the platform. Again, there's no issue with the controllers, and having the lack of wire was really a benefit when it came to climbing and other movement. As for the PSVR version, I'll just hand over to Crafter to briefly explain his experience with the game.
Hey Eden, glad to be here. On the PlayStation VR version, me and many other Espire1 community members noticed an absurd amount of problems and bugs with the game upon release. PlayStation users couldn't change any settings other than audio, meaning customization for rotation, the comfort settings, and a group of other useful features were completely locked off and were stuck at their default values. Voice recognition didn't work, most of the guards you killed or knocked out couldn't be picked up, meaning you couldn't hide bodies, and the move controller model was, and sometimes still is, visible when holding guns. I really hate bashing on developers for bugs, but when we've waited for so long, with so many delays where the devs said they needed more time to fix and polish the game, in turn making the anticipation for the release higher, I feel like I was in the right to be annoyed with the issues at hand, and everyone in the community, they all were in the right as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy this game, and with the patches that have slowly come out for the PSVR version, fixing almost everything I just mentioned, it's as good as I was expecting. An amazing VR stealth game that is both fun and challenging for a newcomer of the genre. But the problems at hand upon release set the experience back tenfold, and really put a lot of people off of playing the game and in turn enjoying the stuff that developers have in the future. It's kinda sad. On the graphics side of things, however, the game does a fairly good job. Everything I've seen so far is at a pretty decent quality, especially with the recent 1.04 update bringing some graphical enhancements. It's obviously just being set back by the limitations of PlayStation hardware. The controls are practically perfect and really easy to understand, and it's actually caused me quite some trouble trying to remember a bunch of other control methods in different games such as Rec Room. And I think that's all I really need to mention. So, Eden, thank you for letting me be here. It's been Crafter. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.
So it sounds like PSVR had a rocky start, but it's looking better now. So we've already mentioned graphics, but sound-wise, aside from the issues with the voicing, it doesn't really stand out too much. Now, the game costs approximately $30, £23 or €28, depending on the platform. While the game does have its issues, I do feel like it's worth it based on the amount of content. Now, to finish up, Espire1 VR Operative does not feel like it's Metal Gear Solid in VR. It's still a very good stealth game in VR, with tons of options, but some rather bad issues. I already enjoy the game, but if they improved the AI, it would become much better. I do think that there were some very high expectations of the game, which perhaps it didn't reach, but it's certainly still worth playing and enjoying on its own merits. Once again, this was Eden from HelixxVR. If you'd like to see more like this, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that alert button so you see when we release new videos.